Okay. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Beeler. I'm the superintendent of schools for Salamanca, where my job is to improve teaching and learning throughout the Salamanca community. We are here tonight for our second public forum on our district identity, which is the Warriors, and our current logos that we utilize, which will be presented here shortly. I am joined to my right by two students. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Nora Pace, State Government. Government.
Terrific, welcome. At all of our forums, we are encouraging our student government to participate. We have been working closely together, and I'll talk a little bit more forward this evening about their involvement, and you will likely see them at upcoming forums as well. So just a couple notes as we move on. As an educational organization, we expect all participants in the forum to serve as a role model for our students, and that's a role model of civility, and we encourage critical and open dialogue. As a reminder, all of our participants are subject to the code of conduct, which prohibits disruptive, disorderly, or insightful behaviors. Are you okay with that? Do you feel like you're going to be disorderly? Okay, that's good. All right. Anyone who would like to speak? Now, we don't have a packed house here, so initially I had things sort of limited to 3 minutes until everyone has the opportunity to speak, but it looks as though everyone will have the time that they need. The sessions are going to be limited to 2 hours in total length. We have 5, maybe 6, I think 6 sessions scheduled. This is our second. And if we have a need to add more of these forums or sessions, we will do so that we ensure that everyone has the opportunity to participate and that we hear from them. In addition to these public forums, there will also be digital surveys and written opportunities for us to receive feedback, and those will be coming out shortly. So a little bit of the agenda before we open it up to the forum and hear what people have to say. We're going to go through a little bit on the history and introduction. I'm going to talk briefly about the actions that we have taken up to this point in time. Introduce a couple guiding questions, and these are questions that have been adapted from the student government questions. And then we'll open it up for public time. So, Salamanca City Central School District has been identified as the Warriors since at least 1937. It could very well go back farther than that, but I guess the point is, have we been the Warriors for 5 or 10 years, or has it been 90 years? In reviewing and going back through some of our earliest yearbooks, it is clear that there were several references to the Warriors in the 1937 yearbook, so I think it's safe to say at least the past 80 years, Salamanca has identified as the Warriors. Now, the logo that has been associated with Salamanca High School and Salamanca School District has changed a little bit over the past 50 years. We'll also see that in a few moments. The logo and our identity was reaffirmed in 2001 when a similar statement was made and requirement by the state education department. And I can go through a little more on history, but about 20 or 21 years ago, state education department indicated that logos that are derogatory toward indigenous peoples had to go away. And at that point in time, the community had a discussion, and the school board decided at that point to stay the Warriors and continue the use of the Native American logo at that point in time. And that brings us sort of up to where we are right now. On the screen here, you can see that there are several different logos that we utilize. The one on the left is one that was used prior to 1978. The one immediately to the right of that is post 1978. The transition there from the one on the immediate left to the one next to it was purposefully changed to more accurately represent a native Seneca. The one on the left with the more elaborate headdress is more indicative of a Western indigenous person. The one that's encircled is an accurate representation of a traditional Seneca male, and that logo was designed by Seneca artist Carson Waterhill. You'll see that after 1978, we have there are a variety of versions of warriors. This is one that's a little more recent that has the logo incorporated into it. And then completely separate from why we're here tonight, in the summer of 2022, the district undertook a process to provide a logo or a letter mark that emphasizes Salamanca as opposed to warriors. And in December, we sort of announced or unveiled our newest letter mark. The intent there has never been and is not to replace our native logo, but there are some times that the native logo we may not want to use, and therefore will use the S letter mark. Now, all of these are potentially problematic with what the new state education department requirements are. So why are we here today? Well, on November 17th, the state education department issued a memo requiring the elimination of Native American mascots. While we have always said in Salamanca that we don't have a mascot, we have a Native American logo. The way the requirements appear to be coming out is any reference or connection to Native American or indigenous peoples has to be eliminated. So if we're the Warriors without a logo or even likely the S letter mark now, we can stay the Warriors. But as soon as we connect Warriors with the Native American logo, or even our letter mark, the S with the feather, that becomes problematic and puts us in conflict with the state ed requirement. On December 1st, there was a follow-up memo to propose a timetable indicating that the new rule will become effective or permanent, so to speak, on May 3rd of this year, 2023. And that by the end of this school year, so June 30th of 2023, any school district that has a connection to indigenous names, logos, or mascots must indicate that they're going to end that connection. And then they have 2 years, so by the June 30th of 2025, all indigenous names, logos, and mascots will be required to be eliminated from the district. So that is why we are here and why this discussion has originated. A little bit of the history as far as work that has been done up to this point. The district has said over and over that we are 100% committed to a totally open and transparent process as we determine whether or not we wish to continue to identify as the Warriors and whether or not we wish to continue to utilize our Native American logo or the S letter mark. And we're looking for feedback. Since the November 17th, I have had the opportunity to meet with the Seneca Nation. We as a district have said that we will work in concert with the Seneca Nation of Indians. They do not have an official point or stance on this. We as the district do not have a stance at this point. We are still in the sort of data and information gathering phase. Additionally, since the memo came out, I have had the opportunity to meet with the high school student government multiple times so that we can get them involved in this process. I also had the opportunity to meet with the Allegheny Indigenous Youth Coalition and asked for their involvement in both the feedback as well as participation in nights like tonight. The student government has developed some questions which are similar to the ones that are on the screen here right now. Additionally, the student government will be gathering feedback from all of our high school students in grades 8 through 12 in a survey format. And we'll be having sessions throughout the school day where students can come and orally present their feelings on the topic. So in order to help us a little bit focus some of the conversation, we proposed what we're referring to as sort of guiding questions. And those are, what do you believe it means to be a warrior? Do you identify with the term warrior? Do you have any concerns over the term warrior? What are your thoughts on our Native American logo? Do you identify with the current Native logo? And do you have any concerns over the logo? So with all of that being given, stop sharing. And I'm happy to open it up to what anyone would like to share. All right. As a representative of the student government, we're not necessarily sharing, what it is that they believe. They're here to sort of help facilitate the process. Anything? All right.
I just randomly.
Yeah.
Has the nation, they haven't taken a stance on like what, or given their idea of what they would prefer.
At this point, they have not. This was very early, maybe the end of November or December. I think it was really sort of an opportunity to begin to open dialogue and say, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. One of the things that we as a district has said since day one is that A, we're going to work in connection with the Seneca Nation, and B, we're going to do the right thing. That right thing might not necessarily be the popular thing. So what I mean by that is sometimes government is influenced by the loudest voice in the room. And if there's a large group of people who don't identify with the Warriors or our logo, or who find it offensive and can substantiate that, then I think we're going to have to take a hard look at whether or not we continue the use of it. It is likely that at this point, the popular choice may be to keep it the same. But if we have a student population that is disconnected from it and does not feel it's appropriate, or if the research tells us that shouldn't happen, then that will likely be the recommendation to the school board, and then we will work with the Seneca Nation to see where we end up. But, to more directly answer your question, the Seneca Nation really was as interested, I think, as the district is to hear what people have to say before we begin to form a solid decision.
Just with the term warrior, because it has been in the history for so long.
Sure.
I know, and a lot of our families are generational families, that feel that way. I know even mine, like my parents, when it came to Sonic, were warriors, and my brothers and I, and then now my children are here. So that term alone, I personally, I would support staying warriors. But I can also, I understand if the indigenous symbols something don't want to be used. Growing up, we always thought it was kind of cool, made our district unique, going in other places and teams, and I think most people were kind of proud of that, and that was a symbol of pride. I don't think anyone, well, I can't say, but I know myself and my friends and stuff, we didn't think of it as a derogatory depiction or a cartoon depiction. We took it as a representation of many of our friends and their families from where we come from, and we knew it was a unique situation to us. But again, I'm not Native, so if it's offensive, then I would totally understand that as well. But that's where I think it would be up to the nation to make a stance that they, supported it, and when, how, and where, but.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that the district is sensitive to is that, once again, I think the Seneca Nation has gotten put into a position that they didn't ask to be in.
Right,
right?
yeah.
So we need to make sure that we're working together and understand, and we all need to recognize that, I'm sure, or my understanding is they weren't necessarily consulted as to whether or not they're going to be the determining factor, because I don't think that that's what they wanted to find. So.
Right.
So that's part of our commitment, is to make sure we end up in a place where we can all just civilly, and that the things that are beneficial to everyone.
I do believe though that like the decision should be made by, of course, these forums are great, the people's opinion of people who live here and the natives that live here. I know on some of the social media, there was not necessarily about Salamanca, but like on the New York State things, there were a lot of people commenting, you know, about our situation that aren't from our area. You know, so I would leave it up to the, and I do think that the native voice should definitely be heard, because that's a big part of it. But I would like it to be like the Seneca and the financial voices of our area.
So do you mind if I just summarize this so I can make sure I got it accurately? You spoke about the term warrior, and that a lot of families have generations of warriors in them. They have gone to school in Salamanca for many years. You support staying the warriors. You have always looked at it as a symbol of pride. Did not view it as derogatory, and was the representation of your family friends, or your friends and their family. And then I believe I heard you say that you would like, or believe the decision should be made by our local community, not necessarily heavily influenced by people from outside of our location, but being mindful that we absolutely have to have community members. That's about it.
And then are there, like, could we apply for variance from the state or?
So there is, and I'm glad you brought that up. Within the initial memo, there was an indication that districts can keep their logo or mascot or identity if there is a tribe that, so to speak, endorses it or says it's okay. My sense is, from some conversations and meetings that have held, that I have not been privy to, but have received feedback from, is they're walking back from that a little bit. Now, I don't know, because once again, we don't have any real guidance from state ed on what that looks like. So sometimes, you know, it's frustrating, because the way state education department typically works is a memo comes out saying, hey, look, this is coming, right? There's going to be a rule. The rule doesn't even come into play until take effect May 3rd. But they start with a memo. During the pandemic, it was always Friday at 4, which was awesome weekend, right? So it comes out usually in the afternoon, and then we're sort of in limbo a little bit until we get another memo or maybe a guidance document, you know, 3 or 4 months later. So that's one of the reasons that it's now, you know, February, and we're having our second meeting, when it initially came out in November. We just weren't sure what we were going to be talking about. And at this point, we're still not sure whether we're going to have to make a change or not, or what the actual guidelines and rules are. But in that initial memo, there was a reference, as I said, stating that you can get this sort of variance or a waiver. I don't have any particulars on what that is. And I looked at this, and I know the board sort of looked at this as an opportunity. You know what, maybe it's a good idea to have us reflect on our identity and logo and ensure that we're all on the same page. And we're not going to all be on the same page, but at least as a community, we can understand the differing perspectives on things and be respectful of them. All right. Well, if There's no other feedback. We'll end tonight's session. This will be posted on our school website, along with all of the feedback that has been gathered in both oral, like tonight, as well as in written form. And I look forward to upcoming sessions. Thank you.